How we doing, y'all? Welcome to episode 59 of the River Podcast. My name is Ethan Rosensteel. Thanks for joining us. Happy Wednesday. Happy Christmas season. Finally got some snow on the ground. Finally got a little bit of that Christmas spirit. And back home, made the trip back actually today. Elson is in the process of making his trip back today. He's probably 40,000 feet in the air on an airplane right now, somewhere in the United States between here and Tulsa. Who knows where he's at? We'll have to check in with him during the next episode. We will not have an episode next week, obviously, because Christmas is on a Wednesday. We're working on trying to get an episode for New Year's. Like we did last year, we did a New Year's special. We'll try to do something similar in that regard for this time. But a fun episode today. Excited to get into this one. A lot of cool stuff. A lot of local sports that we're going to be talking. Natalie Dillon will join us in a second. We'll talk with her. We're going to actually talk some high school football. We'll get back into some football, Friday Night Lights, and then we're going to preview spring season, baseball and softball. And then obviously we got boys and girls basketball going on right now. And so we'll get into revealing our weekly rankings and then the girls and boys basketball games. We got a full slate. And then better late than never, we're going to release, Elson and I have been working on all area teams. And so we're going to release that for volleyball and football. After that, college football playoff starts Friday. We're going to do a bracket challenge together here on. We'll recap some games in the NFL, talk some fantasy football, and we'll get out of here. So let's get this thing started. Joining me now is Natalie Dillon. Natalie Dillon, thanks for coming on.
Hey, Ethan. How you doing?
I'm great. Appreciate you taking some time out of your busy day to talk some sports. Like I mentioned, a lot of good stuff to talk about. A fantastic football season. Let's start there. Actually, you know what? We got some big news. Let's start in terms of your new position. Obviously, you've been the sports editor for the Monroe Times for quite some time now, but you're moving on into a new position. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, so I've been with the Times for just over 2 years. My 2-year anniversary was in October. And I have accepted a position at Synchronous Communications in Monroe. For those that don't quite know where it is, it's actually right above Buggy Works off of the square. I'm excited. I get to use a lot of the skill sets that I have, like photography, some design, some social media aspects like that. But Patrick Bodell, who owns that, is going to be teaching me a lot, like video work, more branding and marketing, which I know of but have never really been taught. So just expanding on what I've got right now. So I'll be done at the Times the 22nd of December, coming up really quickly, actually.
That's actually very crazy. Do you have any intentions or plans on remaining in the local sports media coverage realm at all with the new position?
Yeah. I could not give this up entirely. I've been around sports for my entire life, playing and then collegiately and now as my job. So with the free time that I'll have at this job, I do plan on coming to local events, still taking some pictures. I'd like to do a lot of what, Ross does, offer photos on the side. But I do know people are going to be missing, that sports coverage in terms of writing. So I'm got ideas for a website, putting all that stuff out there. So it's all up in here right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Any plans in terms of who might potentially, or if someone potentially would replace you at the Times in kind of that position that you're doing now?
I know they're going to be looking. I have not heard anything yet. As of right now, unfortunately, that role is going to have to fall on Adam. Adam is great with sports. Obviously, he was sports before I came in, but he's also taken on an additional role of being editor at the Darlington paper. So, he's spread pretty thin, but he's going to do the best he can to continue sports coverage. He had plans of our high school intern, Marina Schubert, just going to take some photos. I taught her how to do some of that. So in the meantime, patching it up as we can.
Yeah, absolutely. What was something that kind of made you want to make a change? Was there a different, maybe potential, like you kind of said, you're learning a couple new skills? Was that part of it, or what was some of your motivation in terms of making the change position wise?
Yeah, so learning new skills was obviously a big pull in for me. Um, my background is mainly writing. A lot of the photography you've seen me take, I look back at my old stuff when I first started and I'm like, ew, that's gross. So a lot of it I've been learning on the job, a lot of the design in Adobe. So InDesign, a lot of stuff with Photoshop, all of that I've been learning on the job. Canva stuff, social media. So I'm just excited to branch out even more, more video work, more stuff like that, and to have someone to be able to teach that to me. Right now, we're newspaper based, so we're writing based. We do a little bit with websites, so it's just expanding out a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of good stuff. We appreciate what you've done so far. I think you've definitely taken
Thank
the
you.
local sports to the next level, not only as like a consumer of your stuff, but also as an athlete and being able to um, be a part of that with you. So we appreciate that. Super excited. Let's talk local sports. Let's talk some football to start. I think let's start with Belleville. A team that was barely on the cusp of making the playoffs and went on the Cinderella run, very close to make it to Camp
Hmm.
Randall, but level four. All in all, really, really good season, and they had a lot of players actually with our all area team. A lot of their players are featured on that as well. But kind of that Cinderella run to level four for Belleville this year.
Yeah, when we were looking at it, preseason or when playoffs start to come, you start to pick, okay, what teams are we going to follow? What teams are we going to highlight? And I'll be honest, Belleville wasn't on our radar. They were an 8 seed, meaning they're going to be on the road every single game. So, not a chance to really cover them locally. We knew we were going to cover Monroe. We knew we were going to have Darlington covered because of our other sports reporter in Darlington. And then it was just kind of, who else is home at that time, whether it was Blackhawk or whether it was New Glarus, teams like that. But Belleville was never really there. And, with Monroe's unfortunate ending due to the competitive balance rule, Adam covered Darlington. So I was, freed up to cover and went with Belleville. And, they just shocked me a little bit. Um, they have really good defense. And then obviously offensively, when you got Logan Durkee carrying the ball, you got a lot going for you.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned in the Cheesemakers and their round one loss with competitive balance. Obviously, first season without Coach G, Tom
Yeah.
Witt and the staff who have been a part of Coach G's staff took over. It seemed like they had a seamlessly transition. It seemed like they kind of continued. They had another Rock Valley Conference title, but obviously, like the round one loss, kind of disappointing in terms because of the competitive balance. Expand on that a little bit.
Yeah. So when the WIA first announced this, I was a little skeptical, and I really did try to keep an open mind on it to see, okay, how is this going to play out? Maybe it will work for some people. Maybe, you know, I was hopeful this wasn't going to turn out kind of as it did.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when I was in high school, we were lucky to win one game a season and we cheered for it. I think we won homecoming my junior year, and it was like the most amazing thing because we weren't that good. You get Toby coming in, changing around the program, and to see all the hard work that went into turning this program around from a team where it was like, oh, you don't expect anything of them to, hey, our expectations are we're going to win the conference and we're going to go deep in the playoffs. To kind of see that punished. I mean, we use the word punished, but
Mm-hmm.
to see that affected, I remember, being on that field after the loss and seeing all the emotions and just thinking, especially the senior class, they had so much more for them. They had, you know, why a level one loss, and it was very obvious to me coming in. Uh, Elkhorn was big, and they plowed right through the line. You had to stop them. Whereas in some other teams we played, we held them. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that was the biggest difference to me is just, yeah, there is a difference from division to division, just in kids' size and everything.
Well, I think it's just pretty evident in terms of you have a 2 seed Monroe who has moved up to a division, and then the 7 seed, and they come into Monroe and beat. And I wouldn't say they dominated the entire
Mm,
game, but their physical ability, you could tell that the size and the strength and just honestly the numbers and the
Yeah.
amount of players, just everything that kind of factors in with being a bigger school, it just kind of all piled in and resulted in Monroe losing level one. I think like you mentioned the word punish. I think I don't know what other way to put it. I mean, we're punishing teams for being successful, so that other teams that aren't successful have an even playing field, and that's not necessarily fair. We don't see that really like in college. We don't see that in the NFL. Like we don't see it at any other level except high school sports. And I hope that is something that potentially kind of gets corrected in whatever way, shape, or form. But yeah, it is kind of disappointing to be able to see a program like you mentioned be turned around. A lot of things, expectations have been set at a high
Mm-hmm.
level, and then now because of this competitive balance, we're playing teams we don't really. I wouldn't say have a chance against, but just when you look at it from on paper, I mean, we don't have a chance on paper, and so it is disappointing. But hopefully it'll somehow get corrected in what way. But um, yeah, we'll see. Coach Witt, I believe, has been named the full-time
Yes.
head coach for the Cheesemakers, and
Yep.
so I would assume that we're going to see most of that staff probably retain. And I would assume the Cheesemakers will not skip a beat come next season.
I don't anticipate it either. And with that competitive balance, we didn't earn any points this year with a level one loss. And I want to say, so it's a 3-year window that they base it off of. And I want to say this 3-year window now, we don't have those 6 points, which would push us up. So we actually, I believe, get moved back down for next season. So we should see more success.
Yeah, I think that aspect of the rule, it might be the only thing that makes it somewhat reasonable. Like, okay,
Yeah.
whatever, you know what I mean? Because there is the opportunity, because of the 3-year window and how that kind of works out from year to year, being able to have that opportunity to still go back down to D3 where Monroe belongs for sure.
Yeah.
Broadhead, new head coach for them. Kind of a disappointing
Yeah.
season. We see it sometimes though with new head coaches coming to town. Broadhead, they brought in a brand new offensive system. A little
Mhm.
bit of growing pains with that. Come next year, how do we feel? How do we feel about the new head coach and the whole situation there?
Well, obviously, Gus is experienced. I mean, he went on to play in college. His family is a rich football family, so I don't doubt that they're going to continue to grow as Gus has gotten tenure. My thing is, I know they were trying to work Gabe in quarterback a little bit more, and Gabe was a very strong leader at quarterback. So it'll be interesting to see with that new offense, who's coming in, who's stepping up, who's that going to be. But like you said, the more they go, I think they'll get the hang of it. And I mean, Broadhead's always been, a good team to compete with anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so should see growth moving forward, I think.
Yeah, I mean, in most situations, I think honestly, Coach G might be the only exception that I can think of off the top of my head. But when you bring a new head coach into a program at all three levels of football, the first year is not normally super. I mean, we take what the Badgers for example with Fickle. I mean, last year a little bit better than this year, but it's even a 2-year thing, and hopefully a lot of optimism going forward for the Badgers and Badger fans. But um, it's it's not something that happens overnight with a new head coach, especially when you bring in an entirely new system. And I think that for sure. I mean, I think when you have that provides optimism. I think there's
Yeah.
optimism moving forward for the Broadhead Cardinals and seeing what can come next year. Lastly, for football, Blackhawk Warren and Potosi Castfield, that rivalry just kind of continues to give. Level one, the missed 2-point conversion results. I mean, it's just kind of crazy to think that that's how that game ended up.
I know. I really wanted to look this year and do a really nice breakdown column of how competitive balance has affected everyone and this and that. But there were a lot of seeding things this year as well
Yes, we talked about that.
that I think I don't agree with. And that was probably the biggest one of them. You've got the number one and the number two in the Six Rivers. I don't know why Potosi was not a number one overall seed. I mean, they were ranked number one all season. They didn't have a loss going into it. And, Blackhawk, yeah, they stumbled earlier in the year, but they played with Potosi. So why we got that low of a seed, I don't know. The WI doesn't release its formula, but they say there's a formula so whatever it is, it decided that matchup. And I think it was just unfortunate because you look at Potosi's next game. Oh, I can't remember who it was, but supposed to be a better seed than Blackhawks, supposed to be a more competitive game, and Potosi just blew that team out of the water.
Yeah.
Again, you wish better for that senior class too, because they went from runners up to now losing in level 1, and I don't think that they deserved that either.
Yeah, I think the seeding was something that we talked about here on the podcast during the playoffs. I think that's part of the reason why the Belleville Cinderella run was so um, impressive in a way, because typically when you consider, like, typically you have to be 500. That's kind of the rule of thumb. I
Yeah.
believe they're a game under 500 going into the postseason, if not right at that line, and so they're right on the cusp. Questionable whether or not they should even made it, but they did, and they went on the run. And then there's just other aspects that kind of go into it. Even Monroe, a two-loss Monroe team, getting a 2 seed, moved up in into the, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
there's just kind of certain aspects. One of the things that I saw in terms of Monroe was, Monroe gets moved up to Division 2, gets a 2 seed. Mount Horeb, who came in week 2 and destroyed Monroe, got a 2 seed in Division 3.
Yeah.
So I don't exactly. How does that make any sense? I don't know. I definitely think there were some question marks in terms of seeding this year for WIA.
When I looked at it, all the teams that got bumped up because of the competitive balance, the lowest seed any team was given was a 3 seed, and that was only one. The rest were 2 or 1 seeds. So I don't know if that, plays a factor that, again, they're not supposed to base it off of your non-conference schedule. It's only supposed to be based off your conference. So if you're continuing to dominate your conference like we did, obviously you're going to get a high seed, but what does that mean then when you're getting bumped up?
Right.
I had something, but yeah, there was only one team that got bumped up this year that didn't even qualify for playoffs. So the rest of them are continuing to dominate against people in their own conference, mostly their own division. So it's not I don't know if it's a necessarily good comparison, because you look at our non-conference games, we played tough people, but that should also be an indicator.
Absolutely. I mean, when you just look at it from a college perspective, like in terms of the whole, like the new era of college football, the 12 team and the power conferences, like your non-conference schedule is almost more important than your conference schedule. And so you have to look at that. And I think it applies to high school football as well. So it's always fascinating stuff. Let's get into a little bit of spring stuff.
Yeah.
Baseball and softball season's coming up before we know it. Let's start with a little bit of baseball. Third head coach for the Cheesemakers in as many years. Dustin Huffman hired. Obviously, he's been around the program before. How do we feel? Do we like the hire? How do we feel about the Cheesemakers this year?
Yeah, so with Mr. Huffman back, I can't call him Dustin. I just know him as Mr. Huffman. With him back, I think you've got some familiarity within the program. Obviously, great guy, great teaching. So really excited for that. And I did see so much improvement in last year's team. So if that can continue to trend up, awesome, great. We'll have to see, though. Again, new coach, it's really hard to establish a foundation, really hard to establish expectations when they're constantly changing. I think that's going to be the biggest thing to overcome, even though it is someone that's coming back.
Yeah, I think so. I think it'll be interesting and I wasn't around really the program or familiar with the program when he was a part of it. That was a little bit before me, but it'll be interesting to see like the comparisons about how the program is ran, from his time earlier to it is now. Seeing how that potentially can work out. But baseball is one of those games. Softball too. It's a lot about the culture and the mental aspect of it and the confidence. And like you mentioned, when you have a lot of head coaches and you're not able to establish that, it's difficult. Last year for me was the first time in my high school sports career, honestly, maybe even my entire sports career, that I had a new first year head coach. That was from the year before. It was a different coach. That transition was a little, I don't want to say difficult, but it was different. It was not something that I even did before. But then when you have another transition, especially, the third time around, it can be a little bit more challenging almost, and because you have so many other different things to weigh. And so I think it'll be interesting. I think hopefully it'll be a good hire in terms of the finding someone that's going to stick around for a little
Yeah.
bit longer and being able to figure that out, establish the culture, grow those expectations, and be able to kind of grow in that regard. I think that'll be good. I'm excited, optimistic as well for that.
Mhm.
Pecatonica, they've had a couple dominating years. Do you think
Yeah.
they can continue that?
Well, they had a huge turnover. That senior class, utterly amazing. So it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, there were some, underclassmen that played on the team that, got some innings, got some at bats. Um, but I think that team's going to be very, very hard to replace. Um, it would be hard to have as high expectations, I would say. So, come in with a reality check, but as long as you have Jim Stroman, you guys they're going to be good. Jim's
Yeah.
been coaching and has a substantial record. He's currently second in Wisconsin baseball, and he's like 1 or 2 games behind the Royal coach who has the record. So,
Okay.
if he continues, he could easily have it. So the program, the culture is absolutely there for Peck. It's just a
Yep.
matter of, can these kids who, we're not used to being in the spotlight, rise up to the occasion.
Yeah, for sure. New Glarus, a team that's really been succeeding, growing kind of that expectation, that standard over the past couple of years. Is this potentially the best team that they've put together come this spring?
Well, last year was a record year for them. I think it was their first regional title.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you lost some seniors, but I think the important part of it is once you taste it, you want to taste it again. And I think
Mm-hmm.
them knowing that it is a possibility is a huge factor for them to come in again. Patrick Alt pitching, you got Matt Rote, Nathan Hendrickson, like all of these kids are coming back that did have the success. So I'm optimistic. I'm, really excited to see what they could do in the spring.
Yeah, for sure. I think so. I know Patrick, a guy I've played hockey with for
Mhm.
many years now. He committed to play some baseball at the next level. So I think this is a team that's going to be exciting to watch. I think they can, like you mentioned, once you taste it, you want to taste it again. You understand, and
Mhm.
we kind of been talking about that. That's kind of how that expectation gets set, and it's you made it this far, but how far can we go now? And so I think it'll be interesting to kind of see potentially where they can go this year and if they can continue to grow that for sure. Let's get into
Yeah.
a little bit of softball now. Cheesemakers, kind of the same story. They've been continuously kind of setting and getting better and better. Is this year potentially the best team that they've put together in a little bit?
This senior class and with Kagan and all the younger ones, I'm very excited. They continue to build, they continue to grow. I believe replaced 2 starters, Kate at catcher and Katrina at short. So 2 big positions, but I think we've got the girls to be able to do it. Everyone's a year stronger, a year better. Monroe is a community or a place that loves softball. The girls do it in the off season. They go play travel ball. So I know the girls themselves want it. So I think with everyone maturing, this will be another strong year for sure.
Yeah, I think so. I think, I mean, the senior class this year has been a majority of them have been starters for multiple
Yes.
years now, and I think I kind of think and compare it to Monroe State Championship in 2022. A lot that senior class that won that, a lot of
Yeah.
those guys were multi-year starters as well coming into it. That's very important, and
Mm-hmm.
then that provides a certain level of success, and then it's the underclassmen that can fulfill the other positions and be able to provide that will take that kind of to the next level. And so I agree. I think this could be a really fun year for them. I think they had higher expectations than what than what how far they made it last year, and so I think a little bit of that
Mm-hmm.
motivation, a little bit of the extra to it will help them kind of continue to get back and continue to roll with that success.
Yeah.
Broadhead, Ava Rism, I think believe senior year.
Yeah.
Other key pieces as well. Is this a year that you think they can get back to the state championship?
I believe so. You do have a big coaching change. stepped aside. I know he's focusing on watching his son now that he is in high school. So it's actually Ava's dad, I heard, that has the new head coaching position. So Chad Rism. You know, last year when you look at that, it was the year without McKenna Young. And everyone's like, oh my God, what are they going to do? Can they get back? And they proved it that they can get back. And I think it's going to be another good year. Ava is a stellar pitcher. I know she's going to Lindenberg to continue to play. And a lot of younger kids stepped up in those roles last year. Leah Rear was one of them that I remember. She had an amazing diving play in sectionals. And just some of these girls learning to pick up new roles and play in those big moments. And I think a little bit of inexperience maybe would have been part of their loss last year. So with that coming back, again, I think this is going to be another strong team.
Yeah, I think that their standard's pretty high. I think that this is a championship program. This is one that is established, and a new head coach. I think that's the big question. Can they continue that? Do we take, is it a step back before we get back to that point? How does that transition work? I think that'll be interesting to see how that kind of plays out. Great stuff as always. Let's talk a little basketball. Let's take a peek at the rankings here. This is our weekly rankings, and last week we didn't notice with our rankings, certain stats where maybe we were missing certain games or we had too many or something, and we were looking at with sports, and it still says with sports, but we looked at Huddle this week. We were comparing the two in terms of where we can get it, and we figured Huddle had games that with sports potentially didn't. So we decided we're going with Huddle. So it's not with sports, it's Huddle. I'll get that updated for next time. But let's focus in the girls' realm. Peck Argyle and Albany Monticello, a couple undefeated teams. Both teams have been super successful this year. I'm just excited to potentially see these two teams match up down the road.
Oh gosh, yeah. Even when I'm done in January, I circled that game on my calendar. I said I'm going. I want to watch this.
For sure.
Two great programs, two great head coaches, and with the history they had last year, Peck Argyle winning conference, going undefeated, and then Albany Monticello losing to them, but still proving that state playoffs is a brand new season. I know there's a little bit of rivalry there, but I'm excited for sure.
Yeah, a lot. It's always kind of interesting to be able to see the girls versus boys, because the girls start earlier than the boys, and so they're a little bit further on. You can kind of see their seasons play out in earlier fashion. But in the boys' side, Monroe, for us, they were down in the lower half of the rankings. They had a couple of wins, including one last night against Jefferson. They bump up to 3. I think this is, in terms of the boys' rankings, it's, you look at it, honestly, 2 through 9, 2 through 8, 2 through 9, that's very tight. It's a lot of just right around the 500 level. There's a lot of movement that can get on. It's super early in the season. This is, I think, fun one. Obviously, Albany sitting there at 5-0. They're a team like probably tier 1, and then the rest of these guys are tier 2. But it's a pretty tight race. A lot of teams very similar in this context.
Yeah, I honestly am very excited for Albany this year. Their coach is in his 3rd year, so like we said, they've got their foundation set and they're working and they're building up, and you're finally starting to see that. I saw one of their early games, and you can spot a difference. Their defense is utterly amazing. They're able to switch and shift and really make it difficult for teams to score, and they're understanding their offense better. I'm excited. They do play Peck tomorrow. I've got that one circled on my calendar to go to. Now, Peck is turning a new page. They've got a new head coach, and a lot of younger kids coming up and playing in crucial roles. So I think that will be a very good matchup tomorrow.
Yeah, I agree too. Let's get into some of the area games. We like to preview the area versus area games and see what we can do with that. We'll start in the girls around Broadhead taking on Evansville. This is tomorrow night. 6 versus 7 in our standings. Two comparable teams. What do we think in this one?
I honestly will have to pick Evansville. They've got some really talented kids, and I was hoping a lot for Broadhead girls this season. Really was. Allie Dahl coming back as Rock Valley Offensive Player of the Year. She's doing her job. She had 25 points last night against Blackhawk, and yet Broadhead still lost. So, you know, team can't just rely on Allie. Someone else has to step up, and I think that's what they're missing right now.
Yeah, two very similar teams. Broadhead averaging 52 points a game, Evansville 51. So it's kind of hard to even go away. Evansville, they're obviously at home. You picked Evansville. I'll take Broadhead for the heck of it. I think it can go either way. It's one of those teams that's kind of fun to see which way it goes. So they maybe get a little bit movement in the rankings. That's kind of what I always cheer for, is the good game aspect too. So I'll take Broadhead, but it's gonna be a fun one to watch for sure. Another girls basketball game. This one Monday night, Christmas next week, so it's kind of a weird schedule. I think it's actually more Monday afternoon if I saw the time correct.
Yeah,
But
3:30
Broadhead
and
again,
5.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Broadhead taking on Albany Monticello. Broadhead looking to play spoiler in this one.
Right. I know, even though there's that divisional difference, just Albany Monticello bringing so many girls back. They have the state experience. If one, let's say Abby Hollis has an off night, okay, Delena's right there to pick her up. Heidi Olsen, only a freshman, coming up and putting up big numbers, big minutes. You've got Molly. You have so many girls you can turn to and rely on. Whereas I was just saying with Broadhead, it's if Allie's off, they're in trouble. So, you got to have your senior leadership step up, McKenna step up. I know some of these girls, they're seniors, but they haven't had a lot of playing time. They're going to have to figure it out.
Yeah, this is kind of one of those situations, and Elson and I talk about this in the NFL a lot in terms of like the Lions and Chiefs. If you
Mm-hmm.
always bet for them, you're going to be a big time winner. I think right now Albany Monticello and Peck Argyle, kind of those two similar teams. Until they lose, I'm going to always take them. I'll take
Yeah.
Albany Monticello. Until they beat me, I'm going to go with that. I mean, they're Albany Monticello. I just they've been good for multiple years. They're dominant. They're two team undefeated right now. I think it's hard to bet against them. But like I said, I always root for the good for a good game.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll see Broadhead keep it close. Always
Mm-hmm.
fun to watch. Lots of games, area versus area in boys basketball. We'll start with Albany, the number one team, taking on Pecatonica. You said you have this game circled. This is tomorrow
Yes.
night.
Yes, I'm going to this one tomorrow night in Albany, so that will help them. In the last couple of years, Albany's building a building program, so they haven't been able to really bring it together, haven't had success against Peck. So now you see where Peck has a new head coach, Peck has some younger kids coming up, whereas in Albany's getting established. It's hard for me to pick. It really is. And there are two teams that I cover, so I hate to pick or I hate to root for one or the other, but this is going to be a really close one in my mind.
Yeah. To me, I look at this one and I think Albany's a basketball school, 5-0 currently in boys basketball. Obviously, they have the co-op with Monticello, but 7-0 there. If my math is correct, that's 12-0 in basketball all in all. I mean, that's enough numbers for me. I'll take Albany over Pecatonica. And like you said, Pecatonica trying to establish a program. I think that'll be interesting. But, right now, even Albany, I think they're in the classification where I'm just going to always bet on them. And, you know, I think I'll win more times than not. So I'll go Albany in that one. Another game as well. Actually, Argyle, the number two team, taking on Blackhawk. Blackhawk, I believe, is searching for their first win. Yeah, they are taking on a pretty good
Mm-hmm.
Argyle team.
Yeah, I was a little bit skeptical about Argyle this year. They had a really strong trio. Last year, you had Max, you had Ike, and you had Will, and they were a really strong trio there. And with two of them graduating, I didn't know if that would be, too much pressure on Ike for him to feel like he needed to do everything.
Mm-hmm.
But oh my gosh, they just proved to be continually good. Jeremiah Collins coming in, Mason McNett's a senior too, and some kids that saw the floor last year but now have to play bigger roles are really stepping into them. Saw them against Belmont, and Deacon Kubley had a really good game. And Max Robertson saw the floor and got some points and some really hustle minutes. So I'm excited for them. I know Michael Flanagan Jr., or I think he goes by Chip, is really trying to bring the guys up for Blackhawk. They're a football known school, so they're going to be physical. Don't get me wrong. It's just they got to bring something together and find a groove.
Yeah, I think Blackhawk. I think they're averaging 31 points a game. Looks like they haven't hit over 50 yet, but they've had some games in the 40s, and then least recently a couple of games in the 20s. So I think
Yeah.
it's more so they're not chasing. They're at the point, it's all part of the process, but not exactly chasing the W's, chasing the product,
Yeah.
adding points, playing within the scheme. I'm not much of a basketball guy, but I can apply that aspect of it to other sports. And so I'm gonna go Argyle. I think
Mhm.
that they get the job done on the road, but like I said, I always like rooting for the good game. I mean, I'd love to see Blackhawk keep it close to Argyle. That'd be good talking.
Yeah.
On Thursday, again, Monticello taking on
Mhm.
Judah in 8 versus 9, potentially a little bit of rankings movement in this game.
Mhm.
What do you think in this one?
So I was just at Judah Monday. They had a boys and girls doubleheader, and the one thing that Judah, even though they only have one win and it was their first win since 2022, they're a team that likes to shoot the three. So live or die by the three. If they're hitting them, they're gonna hit them, and they're a team that likes to play fast.
Hmm.
Fast and physical. So if you cannot keep pace, if you can't go up and down the floor with them, you're going to get tired. I know Monticello, Alex Rowe is a huge player. Hunter Grossen, even though he's a sophomore, is one of your big guys down low. They, from what I've seen, especially against Albany last year, they're a team that likes to get set in their offense and run through it and look at all of the options. So pace of play, I think, will be a big one here. But I would still have Monticello.
Yeah, two very similar teams. I'm just going to go based off of the numbers: 43 points per game for Monticello, 38 for Judah. I'll take that. That's my score prediction too. I'm going to take Monticello over Judah. A couple battle, like a couple small schools, are very similar to me. Monticello often, not anymore, but like the Monticello New Glarus co-op and then the Judah Broadhead co-op, too similar, just kind of how they operate. But boys basketball, one of those sports that they're able to operate by themselves. I think
Mhm.
it's awesome to see the small schools. Part of the reason why I love the local sports is the small school culture and aspect of sports. And so, but I'm going to take Monticello in this one. I think they're going to get the job done. Last but not least, this one also on Monday, Albany taking on Broadhead. Albany #1 team looking to stay undefeated against the Broadhead team.
Yeah. Again, I think this one will be good. With Broadhead boys, they've always, on paper, it looks like they've got the team to really go. I mean, Colin Walker, amazing player. Head coach was saying he's going to close in on the school scoring record. So having Colin there, having Gabe, having Brody, like all of these players that are more than capable of doing really well in games. And yet when I'm getting scores back, it's not what I think, they're going to be. And
Mhm.
so maybe this is a game where they come out and they show what they're made of. Maybe against a smaller school, they gain some confidence. I don't know. I'm just ready for Broadhead to step up and kind of show what they have in their talent and these athletic kids. Um, I do think it's going to be a much closer game than maybe the girls will be. Um, but again, like you said, do not overlook Albany. They've found ways to win and win and win. And again, they're at home, so that will be on their side as well.
Yeah, you mentioned Broadhead looking for the opportunity to kind of prove themselves. This is one of those games taking on an undefeated Albany team. I think that's one of those games that's a pretty good opportunity to do that. But Blackhawk, a team I believe, is still trying to search for their first win. Albany trying to not lose their first game. I think Albany. I mean, I'm just going to take the numbers. I'll take Albany in
Yeah.
this one, but it's close. I mean, when you look at just points per game, this is one of the things that's kind of hard to think about with Albany. Albany. They're only averaging 47 points a game, undefeated, but still, I mean, Broadhead's going 44. So I mean,
Yeah.
that plays for a close game. Just looking at those numbers now, how do the actual teams match up against each other? That's another factor as well. But I'll take Albany. I think this, like you said, though, I'd like this to be a close game. I think it's a good opportunity for Broadhead to kind of just prove who they might be and kind of make a statement to kind of kickstart their year because it's still pretty early on, especially for the boys.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what we got. A lot of local sports, especially in the boys field, but 6 total area games here in
Mhm.
this short week as Christmas kind of rolls around. Natalie, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it. Always great stuff as always. Good luck in your new position.
Thank
And
you.
we hope to stay in touch and get you back on at some point.
Oh, yeah. That'd be awesome.
Awesome. Have a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.
Thanks, you too, Ethan.
See ya. Always good stuff from Natalie. as always. We got a fun rest of the show. A lot of things to talk about in terms of our all area team, and then getting into some of the national sports, college and NFL football. Let's get into some of our good old all area teams. So this is something Elson and I have been working on for a couple of weeks. We gather some stats, potential candidates at each position. When we mentioned the SCSA, this is a part of that aspect that we're trying to incorporate is the all area team. So as a part of this, we are also, recognizing a champion, the best team in the area based on record, and then tiebreaker into the points per game. I guess it's technically based on the win percentage, but that ties in with record as well. So let's start with football. I'm super excited. Congratulations to the Darlington Redbirds for being the champions in this one. Let me remove the banner, or I guess, you know what? Let's just do this right here. I want this one. There we go. Darlington Redbirds had a successful season. Second, obviously, Belleville made the longest run in the playoffs, but Darlington ended up with a 9-3. They're the second, I guess, longest run in the playoffs in the area. A 9-3 record, averaging a little over 30 points a game. A successful season all in all. Darlington, we're going to give them the area football champions. Let's get into the all area team. Starting at quarterback, boy, this was the hardest position to pick. Elson and I both kind of disagreed. Not really disagreed, but we thought one way or the other. But this was a tough one. I mean, ended up giving the nod to Zeke Zuberbuehler from Darlington. I think his dual threat ability is kind of what captivated it. 784 passing yards, 12 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and then added 712 rushing yards, 8 touchdowns, and only 1 fumble. So a total of almost 1,500 yards, 20 total touchdowns, and only 4 total turnovers. I think just that aspect, and also being able to provide his team with the chance to win. I think when we talk about it in terms of national sports, NFL and college football, the quarterback, in my opinion, the most important stat is wins and losses. If you are giving your team a chance to win on any given day, I think that's the most important aspect of being a good quarterback. You're no good. You don't get recognized at all if you're putting up the numbers. You're never going to win the MVP award in the NFL if you're putting up the numbers but not winning any games. It's an important aspect. I think it's part of it. It pays credit to the aspect of the leadership and the team aspect of being a quarterback on a team. So while the other honorable mention, we'll give it to a Matthew Wickersham, quarterback for the Evansville Blue Devils, I believe. He had a 58% completion percentage, 1,353 passing yards, 14 touchdowns, and 4 turnovers. 14-4 touchdown to interception ratio is very, very good for high school sports. Really good yardage. And Evansville, a team, went 8-3, second runner-up to the Cheesemakers in their conference. Very, very close in this one, but we ended up giving the nod to Zeke. I think his dual threat ability paid credit. Owen Sefford, if there's a player of the year award, Owen Sefford probably would win it. Logan Durkee, also running back from Belleville, but Owen and Logan get the running back nods in this one. Wide receivers, Ike. Talked about Ike a little bit earlier in the basketball. Natalie mentioned him. And then also Will Pinow and Andrew Sarbacher, a couple of wide receivers from New Glarus, added as well. Will Pinow, 51 receptions, 736 yards, 6 touchdowns. And Andrew had 48 receptions, 681 yards, and 8 touchdowns this season. And Ike, 38 receptions, 873 yards, and 5 touchdowns for him, for Peck Argyle. Not a great season for Peck Argyle, going 3-6 this year and missing the playoffs. But for New Glarus, a decent year, going 6-4, an improvement from years past. And for Will and Andrew, they're going to get the all-area team honors. All offensive linemen, something that's kind of difficult to pick, but arguably some of the most important people on the team. Peyton Herbst, Brady Steets, Will Steets, Ross Chris, and Talon Chris are going to be the 5 offensive linemen we give honors to. We kind of base that off of the all-conference, all-state, all-region recognition and seeing what we can do there. But the Steets and their Chris boys from Blackhawk Warren and Darlington dominating the offensive line with Peyton Herbst from Monroe adding to that. Moving to the defensive side, Aaron Benchall probably would be the defensive player of the year. He had 9.5 sacks, 33 total tackles, and 23 tackles for loss. Also add an interception and a fumble as well. The Steets boys and Ross Chris also add on that defensive line. How about the linebacker core? Dominated by Belleville Wildcats, Logan Durkee, Ryder Swenson, and Sam Arndt. Three really good players, all put up good stats. When you look at on defense, it's hard. When you look at the tackle totals are different. Sometimes it depends on where, how teams record tackles. I mean, some teams do, some teams don't. Belleville's guys had the most tackles, all in all, in a team aspect compared to some of the other teams, but the other numbers back it up. One interception, three fumbles for Logan Durkee. Swenson had 7.5 sacks, 2 fumbles, and Sam Arndt, 5 interceptions and 2 fumbles. So the turnovers, the sacks, the tackles for loss, big aspects for the Wildcat linebackers as well. Turning into the DB, Seth Schmidt, a man, he's hitting when he's, you hear the pads popping. He's a big hitter coming from that safety position. He gets recognition from us. Andrew Starbacker, also a wide receiver all area. He gets recognition. Mason Brown, I believe Mason had 6 total interceptions this season. He gets recognition for that. And then Zeke Zuberbuehler also getting a little bit of recognition with his 4 interceptions and a forced fumble. But Andrew Starbacker, 101 tackles, 3 interceptions for him. So a lot of really good stuff, all in all, from the DBs. And then the special teams. You can't leave out the third phase, sometimes the most important phase of football. And I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this one right, but Tyler Miyamoto, I believe, would be my best guess, out of Belleville. 2 for 5 in the field goal aspect and went 31 for 35 in the PAT aspect of kicking. And so a lot of really good stuff there. Then Cordell Harris from Evansville at 828 yards in kicking. Very good stuff as always. And then six kicks inside the 20-yard line. So a lot of really good stuff from these guys. Congratulations for being recognized in the all-area aspect. Congratulations to the Darlington Redbirds as well. A little bit of volleyball action coming to you as well. Congrats to Belleville Wildcats for being our area champions. They went 22-11 according to our records. That is a very, very good season. A lot of games for the Belleville Wildcats. Here's our all-area team. Anna Ellinger from Albany, Loretta Tisch from Pecatonica, Delana Trumpy, Monticello, Kylie Butler from Argyle, Allie Dahl from Broadhead. Natalie mentioned her in the basketball aspect. Maddie DeSchmidt from Belleville, and then Eva Benash from Belleville as well. So that's our all-area team, our 7 players. A lot of great stuff from this squad as always. Pecatonica, Argyle, Monticello, a couple other teams above 500 in volleyball this year. But congratulations to these 7 ladies in the Belleville Wildcats for getting our recognition as well. Whatever it means. We like doing it. If you, I'd always is a good feeling being recognized in whatever aspect. But there you go. That's what we're having. So volleyball and football, all area teams will continue to do that for the boys and girls basketball, and then baseball and softball this spring. And we'll be continuing to do that in years to come, hopefully being able to expand on that going forward. So excited. Congratulations to all of those players, as always. Excited to be able to continue covering local sports. A lot of really, really good sports going on right now. A lot of really, really good games this week. Christmas coming up. It's a good time. It's a good time to be alive. But let's move into some national sports. College football playoff starts this weekend, Friday, with Notre Dame, Indiana. My Fighting Irish got a big one at home. This is one I'm super excited for. But a lot of really cool things being able to kind of come with that, including a bracket challenge. So let's dive into the bracket challenge. Let's do this together. I'm going to pull this up. Hopefully you're seeing this all right. Fun bracket challenge we got here. This is something that's normally a March Madness aspect, but instead we're doing this for football. How about that? But let's go through. Let's have some fun. Clemson, a team barely snuck in. They got a win in the ACC championship. They get the 12th seed, a team that's been overrated all season long. I can't even fathom how that has been. And Texas, a team just fell short up in that top 5 all season long. In the preview, I don't know if that's going to show you whether or not it shouldn't. Yeah, so it's not going to pop up. So we'll just have to do this on our own here. But Clemson, a 12 seed, just really snuck in. A Texas team has been pretty dominant. Quinn Ewers, a couple injuries, and the Arch Manning packages as well. This is going to be a 3 o'clock kick on Saturday. Saturday? Yeah, Saturday, 3 o'clock kick. To me, this one's pretty simple. Let's go Texas. I don't think Clemson stands a chance in this one. I think Clemson has been overrated all year long. This is a team that shouldn't have been ranked for half the season, but they're somehow even up in the top 12, top 10 area. So by no means do I think that they stand a chance. They got a lucky win off a long kick because of bad weather conditions for some reason that they play a conference championship game in Charlotte, Carolina. I don't in North Carolina, I believe. But yeah, Texas dominates this game. I think this one's got blowout material written all over it. Tennessee, Ohio State. This is the toughest one, in my opinion. Two teams kind of in a similar situation. Both teams kind of need to win. They need to win that big game. Ohio State, Ryan Day. There's been a lot of controversy, a lot of whether or not Ryan Day can win the big game. He got the win against Penn State, but then lost to a bad Michigan team. Michigan has continued to dominate the Buckeyes in the last couple of years, no matter how good Michigan has been. This year, obviously a down year for the Wolverines, but they still continue to be successful against Ohio State. A Tennessee team maybe taking a step back. They're still dominant. They're still really good. Nico something last name. He's a good quarterback. He can sling it. He's had a couple issues, couple turnovers, couple bad mistakes. He's young, so you got to give him a little bit of credit. But is he going to be able to get the job done to get the job and get the W over Ohio State? I'm not sure. I think Ohio State, am I a fan of Ohio State? Not so much. But I'm going to go Tennessee. I think Tennessee is going to be able to get the win. I think I trust them more than I do Ohio State. For me, it's just hard to be able to bet on Ohio State until they prove me that I can and be confident in doing that. And so I'm going to go Tennessee in this one. I think that they got the upper hand in that. Penn State, whiteout conditions, even though it's 11 a.m. kick. I think it'll be a noon kick there. SMU comes to town. They are a team that probably should have won the ACC championship. They kind of got dominated the whole game, made it close, and then lost at a game-winning field goal by Clemson, 50-plus yarder. But Penn State, a team, they played Oregon tight. They're a team that I think is really successful. Something to note here, Bo Pribula, backup quarterback for the Nittany Lions, quarterback who stepped in for Drew Aller, notably against Wisconsin when he got hurt. But he's also a guy who's kind of had that package in there. He can run. He's very talented, very athletic, similar to an Arch Manning, but more of a run-focused guy. Obviously not the hype that that Arch Manning's getting. But Bo Pribula, because of some of the aspects in terms of the transfer portal and the timing and some of the controversy around that, that's a topic for another day. But he actually has to leave the team so that he can enter the transfer portal because Drew Aller announced that he's returning to Penn State next year for his last season. So Bo Pribula not going to get a starting job there, so he wants to transfer, understandably. But in turn, he has to leave his team now to be able to do that, something that's kind of they're going to have to work out in terms of the future of this new era of college football. But I think Penn State, I think you just kind of look at the two teams. I think Penn State outweighs SMU. SMU is a good team, a lot of NIL money, a lot of really good stuff. I think they're a program on the up and up, but I think Penn State's an established program. I think James Franklin and the boys get this one done. I like Penn State a lot in this game. Indiana, Notre Dame, battle for Indiana. This is just a short little road trip north for the Hoosiers going up to South Bend, Notre Dame Stadium. I cannot pick against Notre Dame. I think it's foolish. Notre Dame's a team that being the 7 seed is just foolish. I can't even imagine. They should undoubtedly be the 5 seed. They are the best team besides probably Oregon. I even think they're better than a 2-loss Georgia team, but a team they barely lost to, and it was a bad loss, don't get me wrong, but they barely lost to Northern Illinois. And that was their only blemish. They've had, it turned out to be not a horrible schedule. It wasn't the strongest schedule, but it didn't end up being horrible. I mean, Navy and Army, 2 credible teams. Ended up playing a Florida State team. It was iffy. Louisville was pretty good, just to name a few. But Notre Dame, I think they handled business. Kurt Signetti and the boys, though, I mean, I mean, I hate to say it, but they're a good squad, and they're going to continue. Kirk Cignetti is going to be there a long time. They signed a mass long contract, but Notre Dame can get the job done. I think Indiana's going to be back. I think we'll see what they can do in the transfer portal. See if they got another guy that can take over Curtis O'Rourke's spot as the starting quarterback. But I like Notre Dame in this one at home. I think that primetime atmosphere is going to be just something that it's just going to be too tough for the Hoosiers to come in and battle with. Let's go back up to the top now. Arizona State getting the bye, taking on Texas. I mean, Cam's Scabat. No, um, why does his name just leave my head? Oh no, Cam Scabadney, something along those lines. I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but that running game, he was the runner. He was the next man in for the Heisman conversation. He's shined in the big moments. Arizona State's been kind of that team where they've, I don't know if I call it a Cinderella story, but they're projected to get 4 wins this season, and now they're the 4 seed, getting a bye in the college football playoff. Impressive, undoubtedly, but this is a situation where probably the 4 best teams overall should get a bye because Texas is definitely a better team than Arizona State. I think there's no question in that regard. I like Texas over Arizona State. This potentially could be a blowout game. We'll see. Keep it going here. Rose Bowl is a round 2 game between Tennessee and Oregon. Tennessee, there was question marks whether they could beat Ohio State. Nico, is he going to be able to kind of live in the highlight? Is he going to be able to live up to the hype and play in the big game? But Oregon's a team that there's no reason to bet against Oregon. I mean, they're undefeated. They beat everybody they've played. They're dominant. They do everything right. Dan Lanning's one of the best college football coaches, or one of the best coaches in college football. I really, really like this Oregon team. I think they're just, entirely different tier than the rest of the college football and the teams in this country. I think Oregon dominates this game against Tennessee. I like them a lot. Boise State, Penn State. The question of this game is whether or not Penn State can stop Ashton Jeanty. That's the biggest question. Can Ashton Jeanty carry this Boise State team to success against Penn State and the boys? I think Drew Aller, Nick Singleton, a lot of really good studs, Tyler Warren for Penn State. I think that their idea, their presence, their ability outweighs Penn State outweighs Boise State in terms of success and talent and ability. But Ashton Jeanty and Boise State, they get a bye. They're the 3 seed. This is going to be the Verbo Fiesta Bowl. That doesn't really pay a factor either way. I think we're going to learn this a lot. I think the better team deserves the bye. Boise State, Arizona State, 2 teams that maybe don't deserve that. I'll go Penn State. Notre Dame and Georgia. This is one. Carson Beck kind of coming on as of late. Injured. Question marks whether or not he'll even be able to go. I think this one's kind of a no-brainer. Georgia does not. I think Notre Dame's a better team than Georgia. They should probably be a higher seed, but because of the college football rules, I understand. But I'm going to take Notre Dame over Georgia. I think Notre Dame gets the job done in the Sugar Bowl. This Notre Dame team is really good. It's one of the best teams that I've watched in some time. I really like this team. I love them. I'm going to take Notre Dame in that one. Into the semifinals now. You got Texas. You got Oregon. Oregon's been the best team all season long. A team that's been dominant. A team that's kind of hard to bet against. Hard to say that they're going to lose. I think Texas, they've been a good team, but they haven't had the hardest schedule. They kind of got a good draw in terms of their SEC schedule. And they haven't really been able to get the job done in that big game. They have, occasionally, but, all in all, from a very broad perspective, I think that they just can't beat, especially a team like Oregon. So I think Oregon's been the best team all season long. I love Oregon. I love what they stand for. I love Dan Lanning. I love the boys. I think they're going to get the job done. They're going to the Natty. Notre Dame, Penn State. This is the tightest game, I think, of the entire college football playoff. This is tight. Other than Tennessee, Ohio State, maybe, I think Penn State, Notre Dame is going to be a massive game. I think 2 teams that are really, really good. I think this just is – I'm going to go off of the coaching aspect of this. Penn State and James Franklin have struggled to win the big game. They beat SMU. They beat Boise State. A lot of people are saying they got the easiest path to the college football playoff. I say if Georgia beats Notre Dame, they for sure do into the national championship. But Georgia's not going to beat Notre Dame. They got to play Notre Dame. I think Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame, the storied program that they are, I think they stand a chance. I think that they win the big game. I think they have the culture, they have the players, they have the coaching, they have everything you need to win these big games here in this new era of college football playoff. I think this is going to be a tight game. This could come down to a matter of a point or two or a late special teams play of some sort. But I think Notre Dame gets the job done. You got Oregon, you got Notre Dame. If this was my bracket, I'd probably pick Notre Dame to win. But this is in terms of the podcast. I'll go Oregon. They've been the best team all year long. They've been dominant in terms of everything that they've done this season. And so I'm going to take the Oregon Ducks to get the job done in the college football playoff here in this one. A lot of good stuff. College football playoff. Can't wait for it to get started. It all starts Friday night with Notre Dame taking on Indiana. Let's keep going into a little NFL, a little fantasy football for you. Looking good. I really am liking my team. I gotta say, I got a nice clear path. I beat Lucas. I got a dominant win over Keaton, and I got a chance to play Caden. Best team in the league, Chase, lost. His team did not perform the way he was expecting, only 93 points. That's always kind of disappointing, but I'm excited. I think I got a nice path here. Yvonne versus Elson. Elson's team, pretty solid if the Bills play well, which they are right now. I mean, Bills team, this is an opportunity for them to be looking good and feeling good. So we'll see. But I like my chances of at least earning top 3, which is a part of the payout. Other than that, I think I really like my chances to get into the championship. I think there's a good opportunity for my team. I like it a lot. And so I'm feeling good about it. It's a little fantasy football for you. Let's get into some NFL. Thursday Night Football, Rams 49ers. This is a low-scoring game. It was a rainy, sloppy mess down there in Santa Clara. What am I doing? Santa Clara for the 49ers. San Francisco, Rams 12, 49ers 6. The rain obviously played a massive factor in this game. 49ers, a team struggling. Dre Greenlaw just walked off the field. He didn't want to play anymore. Supposedly, he's suspended for the rest of the season. This was kind of an interesting game, but in terms of the aspects of it, Puka Nacua still found a way to be successful. I mean, that kid's a stud. Wish we would have been able to see him play, especially for my fantasy team. Wish we would have been able to see him play the entire season. I think he's talented in what he does. He's successful in what he does. And this Rams team making a playoff push. I think they got a real chance to clinch that 7th spot if the Commanders fall a little bit, even if they just continue to roll. This is a Rams team coming on. They got Cooper Kupp. They got Puka back. They're kind of got their guys back. They're making a late season stretch. They're peaking. They're getting hot at the right time. I like them a lot. Commanders Saints, a crazy game. This is a game for my Cowboys that I was hoping the Saints would win. Had an opportunity to do it. Had a kind of a nice little late game comeback at part of it, but they go for 2, don't get it. Wasn't the best play call that they have. I mean, they got a third string, second string quarterback, whoever they have for the Saints playing. I don't know if that going for 2 in that situation is, I guess, the best way to do it, but it's kind of what we do now. I think Coach G kind of set that precedent going for 2 when he got a chance to win the game. And a lot of teams think that they can do it like the Cheesemakers can, but even the NFL guys can't quite get the job done. Commanders get a big one. They keep their postseason stretch alive. They're having a great season under Dan Quinn, and the boys are looking good over there in the nation's capital. Potentially game of the year, Bills-Lions. A lot of hype in this game coming into it. Josh Allen seems like he's solidifying himself as the league's MVP. I'm loving it. This is good football to watch. This is one of those games you just circle to watch, no matter who you're a fan of. You're just a football fan, you watch a game like this. Bills, Lions 48-42, high scoring, 90 total points in this game. But yeah, I think that this was all in all potentially it's game of the year caliber for sure. But the onside kick with about 12 minutes to go, Dan Campbell kind of regrets that in a way. Not sure how big of a factor that plays in terms of the outcome of the game, as did Josh Allen's performance and what he's been doing the last couple of games. We'll see. Eagles, Steelers. This was also one of the bigger games this week. The afternoon slate on Sunday was phenomenal with the Bills and Lions, and now the Eagles and Steelers. Eagles dominated this game. A lot of controversy with AJ Brown, Jalen Hurts. I think Brandon Graham kind of stirred the pot a little bit on his podcast. Look, these professional athletes, they need to stay off the podcast. They know nothing. They're not doing good. They got to stay off the podcast. Keep the microphone out of their hands unless they're being interviewed after the game because they did something well. Stay off the podcast, fellas. You're not helping anything. But AJ Brown, Jalen Hurts, supposedly their relationship isn't good. We've heard things about Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni's relationship isn't that good. But here we are. And the Eagles, Jalen Hurts had a phenomenal game. Got to give credit where credit's due. As much as I hate the Eagles, you got to give it to what they deserve. And I think that the Eagles dominated this entire game. A Steelers team that, a lot of confidence coming in, a lot of, hard knocks, highlighting a lot of things. Steelers team that's just kind of getting that. A lot of people root for the Steelers. A lot of people root for Mike Tomlin, TJ Watt. A lot of us around here do. And just couldn't quite get the job done. I think this is a scriptwriter game. No doubt about it. Sunday Night Football, the beloved Green Bay Packers dominated against the Seattle Seahawks. Geno Smith goes down with injury. We'll see if he's able to go the rest of the year, but this was just domination from the Packers since the opening kickoff. I mean, Green Bay looked great. They came in, they got the job done. As Packer fans, I'm not a Packer fan, but for Packer fans, you should be pretty excited in terms of how they played on the road, primetime Sunday Night Football in Seattle, which is one of the toughest places to play. You got to be pretty excited with how they performed, how this game resulted. Packers looking good. Jordan Love during Toyotathon. I don't know if you guys have seen that stat. I don't have anything that I can pull up, but Jordan Love during Toyotathon has been phenomenal in what he's been doing. Hate to say it, but he's got a little bit of Christmas magic in him. I don't know what it is, but definitely a guy who's easier to root for than Aaron Rodgers. No doubt about that. Monday Night Football, Falcons and Raiders, 15-9. This really isn't a game I wanted to talk about, but it's more so the storyline behind it. Kirk Cousins has been benched. This was just announced yesterday. Michael Penix Jr. will take over the starting spot. It might have been even this morning, but Michael Penix Jr. taking over as starting quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons. They play the Giants next week. A lot of people call it a preseason game because of how bad the Giants are. But you guys see what you got in the kid. Kirk Cousins getting a lot of money. It's a very high-paid backup quarterback. Does Kirk Cousins want to stick around? There's a lot of things that kind of go in and about that. We saw a little bit of this kind of something in with the Giants and Daniel Jones, and now he's gone on a different team as a part of their practice squad compared to the Giants practice squad. And so we'll see how this turns out. Kirk Cousins is a little bit more of a veteran compared to Daniel Jones, but a similar situation all in all, something that is potential for a little Christmas magic, a little bit of spicy Christmas magic in terms of that. But Falcons get the job done, but Kirk Cousins doesn't, I guess. But there you go. That's all I got. Super fun episode. Thanks, Natalie Dillon, for hopping on. Really fun to be able to talk to her about some local sports and doing her thing. Good luck to her at Synchronous Communications with Patrick Bodell and the crew doing her new position. No doubt about it. But that's all we got. So next week, we're working on a New Year's special so you can see us release once in the next couple weeks. But yeah, that's all we got. Ethan Rose still. Thanks to Natalie Dillon for joining us. Have a fantastic Christmas. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Happy New Year.